Hawaii. Phones went off with one of those emergency alerts. There was an incoming ballistic missile threat.
The man telling a child to climb down a manhole.
And we just started packing. Grab money, grab 2 guns, a little food, and away we went.
There's just one problem. It wasn't even a test. Somebody just hit the wrong button.
It wasn't until 38 minutes later that a correction was sent to cell phones, saying it was all a false alarm.
What if there actually was an attack and a missile coming in? I mean, it was a circus of errors.
Days away from a fast approaching deadline for Congress to pass a spending bill. And a deal on DACA remains a key sticking point.
Everybody should be thanking him, trying to get to the bottom of this.
Representatives from North and South Korea have agreed to meet for follow-up talks on next month's Winter Olympics.
Ryan flips one into the end zone with a prayer, incomplete. The first playoff win for the Eagles since the 2008 season.
Rachel, repeat what you just said.
This is absolutely one of my favorite songs. This is on the Pancake playlist at the Duffy House, by the way.
The Pancake playlist.
Wait, you actually have that in your phone?
We actually have the Pancake playlist.
So while you're making pancakes in the morning.
On Saturday mornings, this is on the playlist. Thank you, Kid Rock.
Later on in the show, she's going to reveal what else is on the pancake.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that.
Now America wants to know.
I will.
And we love Kid Rock. I want him to be the next senator from Michigan. Apparently, he's not running, but
yes,
I wish he was.
You were heartbroken.
I was heartbroken. I spent 20 minutes once at a wedding trying to convince Kid Rock to run for the Senate. That's real news.
What'd he say?
He laughed at me. But I tried, America. I tried. And
he laughed all the way through all of his extra concert sales, too.
Well, you know, it's a corny transition, but true. You know who wasn't laughing for a little bit yesterday? Some of the residents of Hawaii, because as you heard in the opening, well, all of the residents, good point, and all the visitors in Hawaii, because on their cell phone, they got an alert, as we played in the open, that said this. One of these emergency alerts went to all 1.3 Hawaiians and any visitors. It said, ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. And as you can, there's the alert that popped up on everyone's phone.
38 minutes, Pete, for a false alarm tweet to come out. So
correct.
38 minutes, people taking shelter. Kind of scary.
A little quicker over Twitter, but Leland, you pointed out, people aren't checking Twitter when they're grabbing their cash and their guns and their kids and their food.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, well, you know, we labeled this not really fake news, but mistake news that came out. And it was a comedy of errors. It was a state-run system. Some guy quite literally hit the wrong button because evidently in Hawaii, as Dan Bongino pointed out, a democratically run state in every way. It's harder to get money out of an ATM than it is to send out this alert. But rather than blame the guy who either did this mistakenly or blame a sort of antiquated system that goes all the way back to the 1950s that they have in Hawaii, the left, including Tulsi Gabbard, the congresswoman from Hawaii, within minutes was on the phone blaming the president.
Our leaders have failed us. Donald Trump is taking too long. He's not taking this threat seriously, and there's no time to waste. We've got to get rid of this nuclear threat from North Korea. We've got to achieve peace, not play politics, but achieve peace, because this is literally life and death that is at stake for the people of Hawaii and the people of this country.
She's not the one. I was just going to say, Representative Gabbard is not the only one blaming Trump. Hollywood jumped in, and here's what Dan Bongino had to say about that.
Straight. This is Trump's fault? Now, there are only 2 explanations, and only 2, okay? Number 1 for Hollywood. Either they are really this stupid, and they believe that Trump had something to do with this, or secondly, they're lying because they have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, to manipulate people and just destroying their business model even further from, you know, large swath of Americans who will never see their movies because of stupid comments like this.
He's responding to a couple of tweets, one from Jim Carrey, another from Jamie Lee Curtis, immediately going to the president. But I go back to Tulsi Gabbard. It took her 5 words to get to President Trump's name. She's an Iraq War veteran. She's very liberal, but she's usually thoughtful. And in this case, she's screaming, she wants peace. Well, of course, we all want peace.
Yeah.
But to get to peace, you've got to have sober-minded people pursuing policies that actually work. And to point the finger at President Trump when, as Dan Bongino said, it was kind of the equivalent of a butt dial, a mistake alert.
Yeah, he called it the equivalent
of
a butt dial.
It's kind of pretty funny, actually. Why go right there? This is a complicated policy that deserves a solution.
I may answer that. Why go right there? Because if you really want to talk about North Korea and who is to blame, you go back to the Clinton administration. You go back to a failed nuclear deal there.
1994.
The same woman who was involved in that is the same woman who was involved in the Iran nuclear deal. It brings up a lot of inconvenient questions for Democrats, especially for people in the state of Hawaii, about how ready they are, what their state emergency response system is. Well, it's just a lot easier to go, oh, no, this is the president's problem.
Yeah,
but one thing you can't, whether you like the president or not, you can't say that since day one he hasn't been talking about North Korea and trying a new approach. Again, whether you agree with that approach or not, he's trying to do something different. And what we do know is that what we were doing before was not working, which is why we're under this threat.
South Koreans say it is working now.
Exactly right. Yeah, they thank him for the talks that are occurring. Well, speaking of some other talks that occurred this week, we know about the televised meeting that was on, I believe, Tuesday about DACA and the wall, where Democrats were put on the record in front of the cameras. Then there was a private meeting that occurred on Thursday, the one that famously everyone was talking about because of some salty language used or not used inside that meeting when Dick Durbin went and ran to the cameras and tattled on the president. Well, an aide of Senator Dick Durbin, of the Democrat in that meeting, went to the Hill and framed how they viewed this meeting that happened on Thursday. This is what the aide to Dick Durbin said to the Hill. He said, Senator Graham and Durbin expected to have a meeting. They showed up, and there's this, quote, anti-immigrant cast of characters there, and that was obviously designed by Stephen Miller to try to kill the deal. So they're claiming that Dick Durbin and Senator Graham thought they were coming to show their plan to the president that he would bless off on. Instead, there were other people in the room. I think we have the full screen of who those folks were. Representative Goodlatte, Tom Cotton, David Perdue. Anti-immigrant cast of characters is how Senator Durbin's staff describes them. Others would say they're committed to border security and following through on what the president has said. So if you want a good deal, and we know, Rachel, that originally what Senator Graham had proposed was not what the president proposed. Why wouldn't you have people in the room who are going to fortify the president's position?
Not even close. You know, I have a theory on this. I know they want to say that, you know, the senators in the room and Steve Miller don't want a deal. I think the people who don't want a deal are Democrats. The meeting that we had earlier in the week, it was such a high mark for the president. It was really a moment where you really thought this was going to come together because
Democrats were put on the record.
They were put on the record, and it was very clear what had to happen. A compassionate solution for these children who were brought here through no fault of their own, the DACA recipients. All you needed to do was give the president money for the wall and chain migration and end the lottery system that a lot of Americans don't like anyway. That's all we need to do, and you got a deal. And I honestly believe that the reason they don't want to see that deal come together is because once you solve that piece of the problem, the president hinted that we could move forward to maybe dealing with the comprehensive broken immigration system with a solution for that. And that is trouble for Democrats because they don't want a solution. I say this as a Hispanic woman. They don't want a solution to this because they love to use this as a club over the Republican parties, and they are so afraid of Republicans being the leaders in charge of solving this and not being able to take credit for it. Because I think if you take immigration off the table, Hispanics look a lot like Republicans.
There's a little evidence based in as the reporting is coming out to what you're just saying. The Democrats don't really want a deal. Nancy Pelosi now coming out and saying we need to have a clean DACA bill rather than have a deal. Dianne Feinstein said essentially the same thing. We had that Keith Ellison soundbite yesterday. But you go back to that quote. This is to the Hill newspaper. This is a pretty old Washington tactic. When a meeting doesn't go the way you want it to go, you don't go back in and argue and try to negotiate a better deal. You come out, you leak something that is highly incendiary, a.k.a. the salty language allegedly used by the president, and then you have aides go out and create a boogeyman in Stephen Miller, who everybody on the left loves to blame. And now all of a sudden the discussion isn't about the deal, Pete, that you brought up. It's about the issue that you brought up, Rachel.
Mm-hmm, right.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I just want to say, if you're a dreamer, I understand why you're nervous here. Your expiration date in this country is coming up. And I think that a lot of times the left is saying it's the Republicans. No, go talk to the Democrats because this president wants a deal. He tweeted yesterday, I'm ready to make a deal. He's a deal maker. He's the art of the deal. Give me the wall, end chain migration, and the lottery system. You got the deal.
Well, in order to make a deal, though, there has to be someone else in the room with you.
Right.
In this particular case, there was a Democrat, and at this another place, a forum where things are discussed and the public gets to see it, is the State of the Union. Well, more news, because we are now learning that both Representatives John Lewis and now the newer name, which is not surprising, Maxine Waters, are boycotting the State of the Union because of President Trump. Take a listen to these two.
The words and his action tend to speak like one who knows something about being a racist. It must be in his DNA. I do not plan to attend the State of the Union.
The United States of America is represented by the most despicable human being that could possibly ever walk the earth. I don't trust him, I don't appreciate him, and I wouldn't waste my time sitting in that house listening to what he has to say.
Niger Innis, the spokesman for the Congress of Racial Equality, says Dems are sending an unhealthy message. This is him earlier on the show.
Very unhealthy message and signal that is sent. And you would think that these far-left progressives, even though they disagree with the ideology of our president, that they would applaud 3 to 4% growth, record numbers in the stock market, record low black unemployment. You know, this president's actions speak far louder than his tweets and his alleged words.
You know, when you don't have power, the White House, the Senate, or the House, you have two choices. You either come to the table and negotiate, knowing the terms aren't going to be yours, or you resist and you don't sit at the table. And more evidence that the Democrats remain committed to that resist. You talk about what a deal could look like, but your point about Nancy Pelosi saying they want a clean DACA bill,
that's where they're going with this. Earl Blumenauer, a representative from Oregon, says that he is not going to waste his time by listening to a, quote, another destructive, divisive speech by going, and look, we've seen this before. John Lewis would not even go to a speech by President Trump dedicating a civil rights museum. And it's your point, Pete. It's about resisting. It's about making a point rather than trying to help the American people. It's the only answer.
But it's the liberal answer. I'll tell you this. I didn't vote for Barack Obama, but I took my family to see his inauguration because it was an honor to be there.
And the voters at the ballot box are going to get to choose. Do they want constructive solutions? Do they want black unemployment to go down and the policies that have made that happen? Or do they want to invest in resisting this president? It's just that kind of choice, but those are the stark dynamics that we'll see in 2018. Well, still ahead. First, Google's fact checker targets conservative sites. Now YouTube is accused of censoring conservative videos, including one hosted by yours truly. Does this all come down to a political agenda? We'll talk to Dennis Prager and Prager University coming up.
If only I could censor you so easily. And we now know how Nancy Pelosi feels about the president's economic ideas.
Crumbs that they are giving to workers to kind of put the schmooze on is so pathetic.
But Stuart Varney says in 40 years of covering financial news, this is one of the most remarkable stock markets he has ever seen. Is that accurate, sir?
Yes, sir, it is.
Very accurate. Good to see you. We'll talk to you in a minute about it.
Good morning. Hello, Rachel. How are you? Wonderful to see you.
In terms of the bonus that corporate America received versus the crumbs that they are giving to workers to kind of put the schmooze on is so pathetic. It's so pathetic.
So pathetic. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi slamming tax reform bonuses as mere crumbs, but economists predict it will lead to economic growth for years to come.
So why can't Democrats give the president credit for the booming economy and setting the stock market on fire? Stuart Varney is the host of Varney & Company on FBN, and he joins us with more on this. So she says it's crumbs. Tell us what it says about the strength of this economy.
I would like to see multi-millionaire Nancy Pelosi talk about pathetic crumbs when Walmart workers, 1 million of them, get $1,000 bonuses. I'd like to see what happens then, because that is not pathetic crumbs to those people. Look, there are two things going on in America today: enriching all Americans. They're not being covered, and President Trump is not getting the credit that he deserves. Item number one, these bonuses and wage increases as a result of tax cuts. At this moment, more than 150 companies have committed to giving bonuses to more than 2 million workers. At the end of last year,